We're happening right now. The Justice Department is announcing a new partnership and record fraud enforcement actions across the Southeast. There to the right of your screen is current Governor Henry McMaster. Let's take a listen in to what's being said at this DOJ press conference.
From bank accounts in the original scheme. 3 luxury vehicles, including a Land Rover, a Ferrari 812, a Ferrari F8, valued collectively at approximately $1.2 million. He also agreed to forfeit 3 properties, including one in the U.S. Virgin Islands, 2 in Miami Beach, with a combined estimated value of $37,500,000. This is all since May of 2026. The total recovery to the United States to pay out to victims and to recoup tax losses is in excess of $73 million. I trust that some of the photographs, if they're coming up here, will show you the various vehicles and properties that have been seized from Mr. Liberty and now in the custody of the United States. I want to thank the efforts that you put together, General, and governors like you with this support, along with the work of the IRS. This is that we engage in fraud, but the fraud goes across lines. This was investigated thoroughly by the Internal Revenue Service, CID, as well as the Department of Homeland Security. And I will give you my word, along with all my colleagues here, that we will continue this fight. We will continue this relentless fight to pursue and bring back to the people of the United States money that was unjustly taken from them and money that's justly owed to the people of the United States. And I thank you for those moments. And if I could just turn this on to the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Louisiana, Zach Keller. Zach?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zach Keller. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Louisiana. And I want to start by thanking the Governor for having us, thanking General McDonald for convening this. I also want to recognize Eastern District of Louisiana U.S. Attorney David Corsell, who's with us, as well as the phenomenal leadership of Kurt Wall, who's the U.S. Attorney in the Middle District, whose work that you've already heard from General McDonald. I'm here to talk about 5 guilty pleas that happened at the end of last month in a sophisticated fraud case in rural Louisiana. And I'm here to talk about it because, number one, it shows the type of work that we're able to do working with our state partners, our federal partners. And number two, it shows you the type of frauds that happen in rural places, even in places like Oakdale, Louisiana, which is where this case occurred, which is a small rural town in South Louisiana. For nearly a decade, from 2015 until it was stopped by this administration last year, a business owner in rural Louisiana named Lala Patel paid 3 small-town police chiefs and 1 town marshal, Chad Doyle, Michael Slaney, Glenn Dixon, and Tebow Anisha, to perpetrate a massive fraud scheme to allow illegal aliens to remain in the country. To do it, Patel paid his law enforcement co-conspirators to write fake police reports, alleging that violent crimes happened to the victims in the case when there were no victims, when there was no crime. And they did this in order for those people to get visas that are allowed for violent crime victims in this country. And Patel would pay the officials $5,000 for each name, each bogus name they included on these police reports. And Patel used these reports to exploit an America visa program, these visas that allow these violent crime victims to stay here so that we in our communities can prosecute violent criminals. In corrupting that righteous cause, illegal aliens would contact Patel in rural Louisiana, out in the middle of nowhere, and pay him for fake police reports for one of these visas that would let them stay here in this country illegally. And Patel would then pay his law enforcement co-conspirators to generate these reports and lie about it in order for these visas to get issued to people who had no right to be here. And they didn't just do this once or twice, these conspirators. They did it hundreds of times, making millions of dollars, hundreds of false police reports listing these people, each one lining Patel and his co-conspirators' pockets, but cheapening what it meant for the real victims of violent crime in this country who are able to take advantage of this program so that we in our communities can be safe and so that violent criminals can be held to account. The defendants generated so many fake police reports about violent crime that the small town of Oakdale, Louisiana, popped up on a national database as one of the most dangerous towns in the country. According to this database, people were getting robbed all the time, a ridiculous stat that reflected not real violent crime, but instead the millions of dollars that Patel and his co-conspirators raked in perpetrating this scheme for a decade before it was put to an end last year. All 5 of these defendants pled guilty last month and are now facing prison time. And this visa program, which exists to help prosecute violent crimes, is a core mission of our U.S. Attorney's Office in the work we do. We're trying to prosecute violent criminals to get them off our streets, out of our communities. And I know it's a mission of Governor Landry and Attorney General Murrell as well to do that work. But it's equally a mission for our office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, as well as their offices, the Attorney General's office and all of our state partners, to dismantle, to investigate, to prosecute frauds like this. And the reason for that is simple, because these frauds are poison that kills these programs. That we talk about these programs and you hear about them and you think, well, that's a great thing for the community. But the fact is that the frauds we're talking about here kill them. They make them so that no one wants to do them anymore. So this case reflects that shared and coordinated commitment we have in Louisiana to stop this, particularly in rural Louisiana, to dismantle these schemes and to undermine the programs that keep our communities safe and that protect our vulnerable citizens. So with that, I'm going to pass it to the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Mississippi, Scott Leary.
Thank you. Scott Leary, Northern District of Mississippi. I'm here with my colleague Baxter Kruger from the Southern District. Mr. Sterling, I didn't plan on talking about this, but we're seeking to extradite a man from Nigeria who was also involved in sextortion. And it also resulted in a young man committing suicide. And that is an abomination. And the people of this country have got to know that our kids are getting placed at risk with what's happening internationally and domestically within our country. It appalls me. We also heard the word epidemic earlier, and so I'm sitting here in the Northern District of Mississippi. So let's look at PPP fraud. That's just one instance. We've got $2.3 billion in PPP loans that took place in the Northern District of Mississippi. Over $1 billion was fraud. Now think about that. $1 billion in fraud in one of the smaller districts represented here. That number just exacerbates itself as you move across this country. And we are blessed to be able to work with our State Attorney General in putting together a task force because, frankly, we are overwhelmed with this reality, and we need assets. And the most wonderful thing that I'm a career prosecutor, I've been a Fed for decades, and I sit in a meeting and I hear our administration say, pin your ears back and go get them. And that is so refreshing. So that's what we're trying to do. And it's amazing how small cases can lead to larger cases. We had one, Lakeith Faulkner. He was actually an SBA employee. SBA is charged with administering PPP, and this guy was manipulating the system and approving loans. And the investigation resulted in 12 convictions, $11 million in fraud recoveries, and it just goes to show what can happen when state and federal investigators and prosecutors can put their heads together and work together. That's what we'd like to do in Mississippi. And next, USA Eastern District of North Carolina, Mr. Boyle.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor.
Yes.
Thank you, General. I'm Ellis Boyle from the Eastern District of North Carolina. I was recently a private citizen before I came to be a prosecutor, and I've sat in the round table this morning and I've seen what's happening in our district and working with my great partners, Dan Bishop in the Middle District and Russ Ferguson in the Western District, and it is absolutely infuriating to see this money getting stolen out of our pockets as taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer, you're a taxpayer. It's going to these fraudsters. We're doing something about it. We're working with our state and local partners, all of our federal ABC alphabet soup. They're doing a great job. I'm here to tell you about a case we had in the Eastern District of North Carolina with a criminal named Nestle Mitchell, who was engaged in tax fraud. We worked together with the fraud division and the IRS criminal investigators to find that she had 6 employees taking advantage of a COVID tax break for self-employed people. We found 420 instances of her and her colleagues putting in for this tax break for self-employed individuals. They didn't deserve it, they didn't earn it, but they got it. They tried to steal over $25 million of federal taxpayer dollars. They got almost 14 million, and we got her convicted in the end of June. She received $754,000 herself for preparing these tax forms, and she's going to be spending time in prison, and we are going to continue to go after these people. I'm very encouraged to hear my colleagues and partners here talking about what they're doing. Rest assured that we're doing it in North Carolina too. Thank you. Next up is the Attorney General from North Carolina, Jeff Jackson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is what a united front looks like. We all know there's a lot of division in the country right now, but we agree on this. The acceptable level of fraud is 0. And as these fraudsters become more sophisticated, so too must the offense that we run. And that's what we're here doing today, is talking about how we can step up our enforcement efforts to do what every single person in our respective states want us to do, which is protect their tax money from criminals who are after it. Medicaid provider investigation fraud is one of the key ways that we have cross-jurisdictional effort in our state. We work very closely with all 3 of our U.S. attorneys. U.S. Attorney Dan Bishop is here. His office and mine had a $1.7 million case 10 days ago. Ellis Boyle, you just heard from him, a $12 million case recently this year. And Attorney General Wilson, a major case for South Carolina and North Carolina, over $20 million. This is what working across jurisdictions, working together looks like. This is what it can do for the people. And for anybody out there who is thinking about breaking the law to make a quick buck, understand, we are united and we are using new tools to come and make sure you can't do that. So think twice. And I will be followed by our closer, Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, General McDonald. Thank you so very much for us all being here today. I am Lynn Fitch. I'm the Attorney General of the state of Mississippi. And it's been said, hundreds of billions of dollars have been lost that belong to the taxpayers. This fraud happens every year, and we see that. Every dollar that a fraudster is pocketing goes to their benefit, not to the taxpayers, not to those who need it, and it's meant to serve. You know, President Trump called on all of us to take action, to step up our efforts to protect those who deserve those dollars, and to go after the fraudsters. You know, we're here today, and you can see that we are demonstrating that we are working together as a unified front, federal and state officials on the same page. We are working across agency lines and state lines. We are united as we fight fraud. And it's partnerships like this that bring everything to the table in this effort. And it's in the spirit that I'm proud to announce that Mississippi is standing up the Joint Task Force Vigilance with the support of the U.S. Department of Justice, my office, along with U.S. Attorney Baxter Kruger, U.S. Attorney Scott Leary, and the FBI agent in charge, Robert Eichhoff. So we are surging our resources, putting our personnel together. We're going to use every tool at our disposal to go after and recover those fraud dollars and recover from those fraudsters. We'll be bringing on experienced and qualified prosecutors and seasoned law enforcement officers dedicated to making Mississippi safe, protecting Mississippi taxpayers, and restoring law and order. The Joint Task Force Vigilance gives us statewide reach. It enhances the coordination, and it gives us access to all the resources across our respective offices. Together, we'll bring the full authority of our offices to go after those individuals that are con artists, that are grifters, that are fraudsters, and they're the scammers. They will be held accountable in the state of Mississippi through the unified work of our Joint Task Force Vigilance. We appreciate the support of President Trump and the administration, and we are excited to stand up the first of this kind of task force in the state of Mississippi. Thank you again, General McDonald. Thank you.
Thank you, General Fitch. We'll take a couple questions at this time.
You all are combining to combat against fraud?
Yes, it's a great question, that being the tools that we're bringing to bear in these new relationships. So the primary tool that I would say relates to data that is owned in many instances by state agencies. And so we reached this morning 10 different memorandum of understandings with our state partners to be able to provide data to our fraud prosecutors across the country so that we can illuminate the pathways to fraud. If we follow the data doesn't lie. And where we follow the data, where we have access to the data, those silos are broken down and the fraudsters are brought into the light. And by virtue of these partnerships, then we're able to scale the prosecutions that we can bring by virtue of following the data. And then I would also say just the shared emphasis that this room is demonstrating with great energy towards solving this problem is the other benefit to the American people, to know that the entire state and federal apparatus is coming together to say, we're going to solve this together. We're not going to try to solve it apart because we won't be able to. We're going to come together to solve this because the American people demand it of us, and we're going to do our best to meet our obligations. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Reagan Race from the Daily Caller. How did this fraud go unnoticed before? Well, why did it take until now to discover all of this?
So the question is, why did it take until now to discover this? Our fraud prosecutors and fraud agents across the country have long been toiling with this problem and endeavoring to solve it. The moment right now, we have leadership in place who have decided to make this a priority, to give the tools to the agents that have been laboring in this field, to give the tools to the prosecutors to make sure that we can scale our efforts and actually build a fraud team that's commensurate to the fraud problem. So instead of little bites at the problem, we are endeavoring to solve the entire problem by putting an emphasis on it, by putting our money where our mouth is, by resourcing this fight, and by developing these partnerships like we had this morning with a roundtable with over 40 state and federal partners to ensure that we're bringing everything we can to bear on the fight against fraud. One final question.
Maybe with these 19 WLTX, have there ever been instances where you have tried to work together and it was more difficult because you didn't have a partnership like this in place? Will this make it easier?
This will make it exceptionally easier. We have for long relied on hero agents and hero prosecutors and hero state agents and hero task force officers to do this work across the country. What we're doing now is we're building a program underneath those hero agents and those hero prosecutors to make sure that they have the data tools, the AI analytical tools, and all of those resources to support their work. The good news is we still have those hero agents, those hero prosecutors doing this work. We now have the ability to quarterback those efforts by virtue of the National Fraud Enforcement Division being created at the direction of President Trump. We now have that ability to quarterback the field of fraud, to have the full field in view so that we can know where we need resources, where is the data missing, and how can we plug those gaps, both with respect to data fundamentals being in place and the partnerships that are really important to bring to bear. Thank you all.